HARK, we are here. It is time for yet another episode of Regroup Phase. We've got a wild week here. This is the last official preview week that we're covering for this before all of the press kits get opened up and the last cards get revealed. We have a lot to go over. We've got 4 total leaders to go over. 2 I didn't expect to see the specific designs for. We've got a ton of other cards to go through. So without any further ado, let's get cracking. Starting us off, we have a preview here from Pure Sabacc. Link in the description below to their Twitter account where this preview is located. I think they also made a YouTube video. Check them out, Pure Sabacc on YouTube. We have Clone, a 7-cost command ground unit, a 0 power, 0 health clone traded unit. You may have this unit enter play as a copy of a non-leader, non-vehicle unit in play, except it gains clone trait and is not unique. Only the card's printed attributes are copied. This is a legendary number 116 out of 257 in TWI. This is an interesting card. We've seen a lot of these types of cards in games like Magic the Gathering, where you have cheap clones that can copy basically anything on the board. Sometimes they're limited to things that are only on your side. Sometimes they're limited to things that are on your opponent's side. There's a lot of different things. This clone is designed in such a way that you can basically copy either your own big thing or your opponent's big thing, as long as it's not a leader or a vehicle, and you basically get a second copy of it. There isn't a clear-cut case yet on whether this can copy the when played abilities of things. I'm not sure one way or another myself. In other games, the enters type situations would not apply because it's already entered when it's done its thing, but played is very different in here, and sometimes words don't mean anything in this game. So based on its face, you would want to copy something that has a big static effect, like a Crate Dragon, or something that's got a big attack and health, so on and so forth. This thing will get all those attributes. It's going to get its name. It's going to get its power and health. It's going to get its traits and its printed card text. So it won't get anything that's attached to it by something like an upgrade, but it will be able to maintain the things that it does have on it. Cloning a Crate Dragon is pretty cool. This card is balanced around possibilities. It is not balanced around realities. I don't see that this 7-cost unit is going to do a whole lot of work in terms of being able to get you somewhere. If your opponent drops a Crate Dragon on you, you're in a lot of trouble. You're paying 7 to deal 7 damage to yourself and also get a Crate Dragon, and then your opponent can just be like, well, I've already gotten a big benefit out of it, so let's just trade these off the board, or something to that effect. The fact that it does become a non-unique is actually pretty interesting. You can have Vader on the board, copy Vader, do Vader things, potentially, so long as those when played triggers do applied. Lots of different possibilities that work with this clone, but at 7 cost, it is prohibitively expensive, and I don't think is going to see a lot of play. Next up, 2 previews by way of IGN. Link in the description below. We have 2 units that are very well-known individuals from the Clone Wars, specifically if you've watched the Clone Wars CG series. Let's start with 5s in Search of Truth. 5-cost Cunning ground units, 5 power, 5 health. Haha, the joke is 5s. Republic Clone Trooper, Saboteur. When you play an event, you may put a clone unit from your discard pile on the bottom of your deck. If you do, draw a card. This is a rare number 216 out of 257 in TWI. 5s is an interesting card. He's a non-heroic clone. That means he can go into either of the decks that want to run Republic stuff, whether that's a separatist deck that runs droids and stuff like that, or if you're just running a non-heroic clone strategy. Could be interesting, could see some work. 5 cost 5/5, not great, but not terrible either. We've kind of gotten a couple of overstated 5-cost units with things like Poe Dameron and Aayla Secura, but at least 5s bring to the table Saboteur and also the ability to recur your clones to the bottom of your deck and draw cards. That's really good. Effectively, that means that as long as you have a clone unit in your discard pile, any event you play while 5s is on the board will refill your hand back with the card you just spent. That's pretty good. It's kind of like a reverse Bosk. Instead of dealing damage to your opponent's units, you're refilling your hand with cards from the top of your deck while also recycling your clones. It's pretty cool. It's a very neat and interesting design. I imagine Cunning decks that are running clones are going to be wanting to run 5s because he is very good at this, and is going to get you card draw, which, as I've said a bunch of times, pretty good. Next up, we have everybody's favorite freedom fighter / war criminal. This is Guerrera. Resistance is not terrorism. 6-cost aggression, heroism, ground units. 4 power, 8 health, fringe trooper, raid 2, on attack. If your base has 15 or more damage on it, deal 1 damage to an enemy ground unit. This is a rare number 150 out of 257 in TWI. Saw is here, 6 cost, 4/8. Okay stats, not really targetable by things like Takedown or Fell the Dragon, which is quite good. He can still do that 6 damage on attack, which is quite good. And then he also has the ability to spread a bunch of damage to your opponent's units, so long as your base has 15 or more damage on it. We've seen this effect before with Anakin's Interceptor. We've seen a better version of this effect with Guerrilla Attack Pod, where it's if either player's base has 15 damage on it. That's why that happens. There is a leader coming, which we'll see very soon here, that does a lot of work with this style of effect, or at least is able to put damage on your own base, so that way you can speed yourself to defeat to get these nifty little effects that don't really push you to victory, right? I think something that may have happened is that design saw Guerrilla Attack Pod is too strong, so they limited these effects to if your base has 15 or more damage on it, which is very risky, because once you're in that 15 damage value of like range for your base health, if you're running a 25 or less health base, you're way past the halfway point. But if you're at a 30 health base, you're at the halfway point, and that's pretty risky. It only takes a couple of surprise strikes on high statted units to be able to clear you off the board. And worst comes to worst, if your opponent's able to just do a bunch of damage really quickly or final showdown you're going to lose the game, and these effects are going to do nothing for you. I think kind of ignoring this on attack and just sticking with the 6 cost 4/8 raid 2 with a trooper deck is probably going to be pretty decent. Not amazing, but not terrible either. And maybe you might get some use on this on attack in a deck that isn't killing you right as you hit 15 health. As we said at the beginning of this video, there's a lot of previews happening. And as of recording, this is Monday, and they put out a leader. Leaders normally come out Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're getting 4 leaders this week. We're going to start right off the bat with our common aggression heroism leader. It's a leader everybody has been expecting. This is Anakin Skywalker, what it takes to win. He is our aggression, heroism, Force Jedi Republic leader. Look at him getting ready to cut somebody down. Action exhausts this leader. Deal 2 damage to your base. Attack with the unit. If it's attacking a unit, it gets +2/+0 for this attack. Epic action on 6 flips into a 4/7, so average stats for the 6 cost flip. This is a common number 12 out of 257 in TWI. His flip turns him into 6 cost 4/7 Force Jedi Republic with Overwhelm. That's pretty good. This unit gets +1/+0 for every 5 damage on your base. Anakin's whole design is kind of just burning the candle at both ends, dealing a bunch of damage to your base to help clear out your opponent's units, so that way they're not the ones dealing damage to your base. And then on top of that, flipping into something that could potentially make Anakin Skywalker with 10 damage on your base, which I think is kind of manageable. On 6, he does drop into a 6/7, which can be pretty good, especially with that Overwhelm. You can clear out one of your opponent's units, again, stopping them from being able to get the damage on you, and then keep pushing damage onto your opponent's base, so long as they don't Rivals Fall at the turn it comes out, or No Good to Be Dead it so that it's exhausted for 2 turns, stuff like that. The basic removal tools, right? As you take more damage to your base, he's going to gain more attack, leading up to being a 9/7 if you have 25 damage on your base. And you better hope that the flip doesn't get countered by your opponent just smashing the rest of your base, and you can win on Anakin's attack. If your opponent's claimed the initiative, that's probably a good time to flip this and start attacking with it, doing whatever you possibly can to make sure this gets the most benefit on combat for you. But I think the fact that he exhausts himself as a leader action and also deals 2 damage to your base to just attack with a unit that only gets +2 when it's attacking another unit, this leader ability is not very strong. You can clear out your opponent's units pretty easily using stuff like this, because you'll be dealing higher power towards their health, which they're not expecting as often. I mean, they should be expecting it. It's right on the card, right? It's not like it's a surprise. It does deal damage to your base, so you're going to need the healing and the restore in order to back yourself up. Something like aggression, vigilance, heroism with this, running It Binds All Things might be very handy, because if you can take that damage that's on some of your units and pump it to your opponent's units or your opponent's base, that might help you get some of the damage through. But you're still going to need things like Redemption, you're going to need things like Queel, you're going to need things like Yoda or Kanan to be able to push that healing and get the damage off your base, so that Anakin doesn't basically kill you while he's trying to kill your opponent. I was hoping for Anakin to be something similar to Sabine, a lower cost, kind of just straight attacker units that might do some extra damage, even if it is damage to both bases, or damage to your base to be able to get a super good bonus. This is not what I would say is a super good bonus. And while I think his flip side can do some work, I think that this leader could have been much better, especially for like the face character of Star Wars. And it is not as good as I wanted it to be. But you know what? That's okay. I'm okay with Anakin Skywalker not being great because we still have Sabine, and Sabine can still be the premier aggression heroism leader. Early on, we saw some art for destroyer droids. One of the dudes blasting away behind his shield. A lot of expectations came about of this card. TCG Talk over on Twitter, link in the description below to their preview, managed to give us the preview of what the Droideka does. And with that, we have Droideka Security, a 6-cost vigilance villainy ground unit, 4 power, 5 health separatist droid, exploit 2, so you can bring this down to a 2 cost if you sacrifice 2 units. This has Sentinel. This is a common, number 37 out of 257 in TWI. Draft Chaff. What it is. I don't expect us to see a lot of play in many decks that, even the decks that are running separatists, maybe Newt Gunray uses this. Because what other options does he have available that exploits his exploit, right? Ultimately, even a 2-cost 4/5 Sentinel is pretty good, but you got to have the 2 units on the board, which means you're not doing this round 1 unless for some reason you're able to get an extra resource and throw 2 battle droids onto your side of the board. But if you can start with something like droid deployment and then into this on round 2, where you have the Sentinel and then still an extra resource to do something else like political pressure or whatever, you might actually get some value out of this. But ultimately, this is just draft chaff. It's a common to fill the set, so that way there's enough playable cards for limited rather than giving us all good cards. It's here, doesn't have shielded, which obviously it wasn't going to because there's no shield tokens in this set. But, you know, how many players have 1,000 shield tokens? I can look at 3 spaces in this room alone and find 4 separate different piles of shields. Droideka Security. It's a blastin'. Our second leader of the week, these are coming fast and furious, is our rare Cunning Villainy leader. It has sparked a lot of discussion about whether or not it's a good leader. I'll talk to you about it, my feelings, and then you can decide. We have Asajj Ventress, Unparalleled Adversary, Cunning Villainy, Force, Separatist, and Sith traits. As an action, you can exhaust your leader, attack with a unit. If you've played an event this phase, it gets +1 for the attack. She flips on 4 into a 3/4, which then gives you the ability when you throw the unit down on attack. If you've played an event this phase, this unit gets +1/+0 for this attack and deals combat damage before the defender. If the defender is defeated, if the defender deals no combat damage. This is number 14 out of 257. A rare in TWI. Ventress is here. She's here to assassinate the enemies that are on the board. That's effectively what Ventress is that she's an assassination leader. You use her front side to play events to control your opponent's units, and then use your units to be able to eliminate your opponent's units as well. You could attack the base for +1 additional attack, but the idea is that you want to surprise strike with 1 unit, then use her ability with another unit to be able to attack into something, or control one of your opponent's units with a waylay or a no good to me dead or a cunning, then exhaust Ventress and then throw stuff at. And then when you flip to the other side, you specifically want to use surprise strike on Ventress to attack with her and then be able to get that +1/+0 and clear out one of your opponent's defenders. All things equal, if you flip on 5 against the Boba Fett and survive whatever comes at you afterwards, she will clear Boba Fett with a surprise strike and not take any damage back. Mind you, she's a 3/4. She's very susceptible to pretty much all forms of removal except for capture and returning to hand. But she's taken down by force choke. She's taken down by takedown. You can open fire this. You can no good to me dead this and then just deal with it at your own pace. You can just attack into this with a 4 power unit. There's a lot of different things you can do to remove Ventress. But if you play your cards right, basically do this after your opponent has no options available and guarantee yourself the kill with Ventress, you can clear almost any, I think it's all but 6 leaders. You can't clear Vader, Hunter, Emperor Palpatine, Jabba the Hutt, Grievous, and Dooku. It's an interesting leader design. It's specifically designed to control your opponent's units. It's not a mid-range. This is 100% a control deck using units and events to do so. But is it strong enough to actually be able to do that? A lot of people are pointing to this as a Boba Fett killer, and sure, it can, but you're also left with a 3/4 leader on the board that doesn't really do much for you outside of being able to continue to attack. It's very clearable, very interactable. Ventress needed something to protect her from being either exhausted or just straight up defeated or damaged the turn she comes out. And right now, that doesn't exist. It's a 2-action kill, but that having it be 2 actions is very, very, very targetable, very interruptible, and I am not very high on this leader myself. Next up, we have 2 previews coming by way of Wossy Plays. Link in the description below to that video. We've got an event and we have a fun upgrade. Let's start with the event. We have here Guerrilla Insurgency, an 8-cost tactic event that is aggression. Each player defeats a resource they control and discards 2 cards from their hand. Deal 4 damage to each ground unit. This is a rare, number 177 out of 257 in TWI. Obviously, this is designed as a reduce as many resources as you possibly can. Every player loses a resource, every player loses 2 cards from their hand, and all players lose all of their units on the board if they have 4 health or less in the ground arena. This is okay against droids, okay against clones. Ultimately, I think you as a player have to spend too much on this to get it to be effective, and you have to sacrifice too many things in order to be able to make it work. It fits with Saw's like strategy of just sacrificing as many things as you possibly can to get the win, but Guerrilla Insurgency is just too high costed of an ability, and it's not even just that fact that it costs 8. It costs 8, a resource, and 2 cards from your hand. Sure, you disrupt your opponent with a resource and 2 cards from their hand, and 4 damage to each ground unit. But if your opponent's playing space units, this is a dead card in your deck, and only space units. There's a lot of different ways that this card can go wrong. It might be interesting. I'll be interested to see if somebody pulls this off and is able to win a game as a result of it if they weren't already losing to begin with or going to lose. But the point being is that Guerrilla Insurgency is one of those. This could be a fun thing to do, but is it something that's going to win you the game? And more often than not, I think it's going to lose you the game. The second card from Wossy Plays is our upgrade. It's fun, it's a meme, and it actually might be kind of good. We have here Roger, a 1-cost vigilance upgrade. When defeated, attach this upgrade to a friendly battle droid token. +1 power, +1 health. It is a learned traded upgrade. This is a rare, number 69 out of 257 in TWI. Nice. Roger is fun because you can throw this onto something, get an attack out with it, exploit whatever that unit is, and then attach this to another battle droid that you have on the board. Because the separatist strategy is trying to have as many battle droids as it possibly can, you're gonna have a lot of them unless your opponent is absolutely spending every single resource, clearing everything you have available to you to be able to get these things, get those things off the board. Ultimately, even trying to clear Roger itself off is hard because it's when the upgrade is defeated. So if you return the unit back to the opponent's hand, the upgrade gets defeated, therefore Roger comes back into play on another friendly battle droid token. So you would have to board clear and also make sure that your opponent didn't have any battle droid, things like battle droid escort or legion, dropping more droids on the board, because you can stack the sequences so that way the when defeated of the droid creator happens first, then the when defeated of Roger happens after that. So it's an interesting effect. It only gives you +1/+1, but it's only a 1 cost, and it does reattach itself to another droid, like I said, which you should have a bunch of them. It's a fun little card. Is it going to see a lot of play? Probably not. But if somebody wants to throw one of these in their deck and just has a Roger, start slamming battle droids into your opponent's units and just keep going, that might be a fun little play to be able to pull off. Next up, we have our last legendary double single aspect card. Our last one is Command, and this is a very, very interesting card. We have here Fearic Assault. This is a 3-cost double command disaster event. For this phase, each friendly unit gains, when defeated, deal 2 damage to an enemy unit. This is legendary number 103 out of 257 in TWI. Your units deal damage to your opponent's units. It can cross arena, which is quite good, but it's only the units that are on the board when you play Fearic Assault. So if you do something that clears a bunch of your units and you create more units as a result of that, those units do not have the when defeated thereafter. So Fearic Assault is designed to pay 3, all your stuff deals extra damage, and then start sacrificing your droids to either exploit them or start ramming them into your opponent's units to be able to do those damage to things, whether it's in space or on the ground. You can do this with clones as well. You can do it with other. It's double green. So you are able to do this with both sides, heroism or ability with little penalty, as long as you're playing double command in your deck, double green, whatever. I think a lot of the time you're going to see this used a lot with the droid strategies, but clone strategies can still use this. It's just not as repeatable with the ability to get those units back as easy. So just slam your stuff into your opponent's stuff, deal extra damage, and your opponent has to go, okay, how do I deal with this without actually defeating the units? And then you get hit with Evacuate, and then nothing really happens. Next up, we have 2 previews coming by way of TCGPlayer, an event and a unit. Link in the description below. Both of these cards actually excite me a lot for Republic strategies. Let's start with the event. We have here In Defense of Kamino, a 4-cost Command Republic event. For this phase, each friendly Republic unit gains Restore 2 and, when defeated, create a Clone Trooper token. This is a rare. I believe it's 123 out of 257 in TWI. First of all, 99, go clones. We also have Rex and Cody on here. It's a fun card, very fun card. It's a 4 cost. It gives all of your Republic units Restore 2, and then when they're defeated, Clone Trooper token. So where Ferric Assault was, you kind of do this with anything and deal damage. This is, I'm going to slam my stuff into your stuff, restore damage off my base while doing so, and then also create Clone Trooper tokens for the next phase, next round, to be able to continue the assault upon you. So you can defensive Kamino, run a bunch of your units up against your opponent's units, restore the health off your base, get your troopers back, and then on the next round, play Sword and Shield maneuver to give all of those troopers raid 2, and then you're attacking even more with stuff. And if you still have your things like Shock T or your Yularen on the board, and they've remained on the board, you get those extra bonuses for those tokens to be able to continue to do more damage and be more survivable, or just do this 2 turns in a row. Not a terrible idea, 2 rounds in a row. So I love this card. I think it's really good. I don't know if it's an automatic 3 of in every Republic deck, but I think it's one of those events where you put 1 or 2 in your main deck and a couple in the remainder in your sideboard, and you sideboard these in on matches where you think you're going to need that restore, where you're going to need to put that pressure on your opponent that they're not already putting on yourselves, maybe against aggro, and just try to clear those units off the board before they can use them to really damage and destroy your base while restoring the damage they've already done. Great card. Love it a lot. The second card from TCG Player is a big chonk space unit. I'm happy to see it. We have the Resolute under Anakin's command. This is a 10 cost aggression heroism space unit, 8 power, 8 health, Republic vehicle capital ship. This unit costs 1 less to play for each 5 damage on your base. When played and on attack, deal 2 damage to an enemy unit and each other enemy unit with the same name as that unit. This is a legendary number 151 out of 257 in TWI. Anakin's Big Ship. Anakin gets 2 signature cards in this set. He gets the Starfighter that gets extra power if you have 15 or more damage on your base, and then you get Resolute, which comes in less for each 5 damage that's on your base. So if you have 15 damage on your base, this comes in as a 7 cost 8/8 that deals 2 damage on to a unit when played, and then on attack of the round after is pretty good. This is the board clear for tokens. If your opponent's playing clones that don't have any buffs, or battle droids that have a minor amount of buffs, just like +1 to your health, this will clear out all of those off the board, because you go, cool, target this 1 clone trooper that has 2 health, or this battle droid that has 2 health, and then clear all the rest of them that have the same stats, right? It's just because it's the same name. But if your opponent's running a bunch of things like several clone deserters on the board, or several of the Mandos, or any of the non-unique units that you can run multiples of, this could do a lot of work there as well. And I imagine this might do some extra work in the future if we get other low-costed things that go into space that allow you to be able to do a ton of extra damage to those things and clear them off the board. I like the Resolute a lot. I understand why people don't necessarily like it, because you do need a bunch of damage on your base to make it as viable as possible. But even if you only have 10 damage on your base, an 8 cost 8/8 is still pretty good in space, especially with the when played and on attack. And they start blasting. That's basically what these things do. Next up, by way of FFG socials, we have a fan favorite character that a lot of people like and an absolutely bonkers design. We have Huyang, Enduring Instructor. 3 cost command ground unit, 2 power, 4 health, Jedi and droid traits. When played, choose another friendly unit. While this unit is in play, the chosen unit gets +2/+2. This is a rare number 110 out of 257 in TWI. Round 1, Battlefield Marine. Round 2, Huyang. Battlefield Marine is now a 5/5. Attack with your 5/5. Done. Right? I think that this should have been heroism, because there's no reason why villainy should be able to get access to an effect like this. I understand for game balance reasons, they want to make things as open as possible. Huyang is not a villainous character under any circumstance. So I'm going to call that a design mistake. 2/4, it's not going to be doing a ton of damage itself. You kind of want to keep it alive as much as possible, so you will throw an extra upgrade or any sort of protection on it, throw a shield, whatever the case may be. But the fact that you get to buff one of your units permanently as long as Huyang is on the board, that's pretty cool. I like this character a lot. I like this unit a lot. It's going to see a lot of play. This is what people wanted Cobb Vanth to be. Good, basic, generic type effect that doesn't require you to have too many other things. But while Cobb Vanth has not seen too much play at the same cost for what he does, Huyang is going to see a lot of play, and that's going to be very good moving forward. Next up, and I apologize, I'm going to butcher this name, I'm sure. We have a preview from Mundogalapagos. Link in the description below to their post about this card. It's a basic, small little space unit, but it does have an interesting design. We have Padawan Starfighter. This is a 2-cost Vigilance space unit, 1 power, 3 health, Jedi Republic vehicle fighter. While you control a Force unit or a Force upgrade, this unit gets +1/+1. This is a common, number 58 out of 257 in TWI. Padawan Starfighter on 2, Guardian of the Wills on 2, on the next round with your 2 resources, you're done, right? Or Padawan Starfighter, Yoda, right? Super cool combination. Easy, the amount of Force units or Force upgrades that you can play that will end up giving this thing +1/+1, making it a 2/4, are super easy to get. This slots right into Rey. She can give it an upgrade before you end up putting out your Force units, and then just continue moving on with being able to do cool things with this Padawan Starfighter. It doesn't clear anything on its own. You do need an upgrade out either on it or on something else to give it the bonus, and then another bonus on top of that. But having a 2/4 in space for the easy cost of playing another Force unit is going to be pretty good, and it's not as clearable because it will have 4 health. So it's a fun little card. It's going to be, I don't even think this is actually going to be a good draft card other than just being a 1/3 in space, because while there are a bunch of Force units, you may get blocked out of picking up the Force units in your draft, or you may not have enough in your sealed to make this a viable early turn play, but it could be a later turn play with some of those higher costed Jedi that do exist in the set. So Padawan Starfighter, fairly interesting card, should see some play. Next up, we have 2 cards from Man vs. Meeple. Link in the description below. They're both events. They should have some interesting design. Let's check out this first one. We have here Grievous Reassembly, a 2-cost Vigilance supply event. Heal 3 damage from a unit, create a Battle Droid token. This is a common, number 73 out of 257 in TWI. You can use this to heal some of your bigger units that you've exploited out and be able to create another Battle Droid token so you can continue to exploit out other things. There's not really a lot to talk about this. I think the 2 cost is fine, but you're not really going to be using it on too many early game units because most of those can be cleared out in about 1 shot. Obviously, you're not going to heal any damage off of Battle Droid tokens. You can heal damage off your leader, save it for that, be able to create that Battle Droid token. Should be pretty decent. I don't expect this to see any Premier play, but limited play, it'll probably get some pickup, just like the double blue repair one from set 2 that healed 8 damage off of units. Saw some play in limited there as well. Our second preview from Man vs. Meeple is another board clear. It's a smaller one, but it still kills every token on the board. We have Clear the Field, a 2-cost Cunning Heroism tactic event. Choose a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less. Return it and each enemy non-leader unit with the same name as it to its owner's hands. This is an uncommon, number 199 out of 257 in TWI. Even if all you do is return 1 non-unique unit back to your opponent's hand, for 2 costs, that's pretty good. Waylay will clear anything, but Clear the Field will return 1 thing. But if you target one of your opponent's tokens, say a Battle Droid Trooper, or Battle Droid whatever, or a Clone Trooper, it gets rid of all of them. They don't go back to the hand, they just disapparate. Because remember, tokens can't be in any other place except for on the board. So Clear the Field is a token clearer and a go wide clearer if you can get rid of 2 or more units of the same name specifically. So this is the first heroism leaned board wipe, we'll call, quote unquote, because there's a lot of things that just return everything back to your hand, like Evacuate. We also have Bloodsport and Bombing Run, which deal damage to a specific arena, a large amount of damage to a specific arena that will also clear tokens. Snoke clears tokens with his -2/-2 aura. We have Overwhelming Barrage that can just do a ton of damage to everything across the board, and that's in Villainy. So Heroism does get its own traded version of being able to clear a bunch of units off the board, specifically tokens. But ultimately, this is also basically telling people, don't play tokens. And you know what? Message received. On Wednesday, October 16th, FFG brought out a Twin Suns stream where the 4 people that were on the stream was Thomas, who is the print production coordinator. There was Xander, there was Joe, and I believe Tyler was there as well. They all played a 4-person Twin Suns match, which was pretty cool to watch. You can go check that out over on the YouTube page, which is linked in the description below specifically for the FFG stream. We got a bunch of previews. I wasn't actually expecting as many previews as we got, so there's a lot of cool things to go through here. We're just going to get started in the order that I saw. There is a showcase Padme Amidala that Tyler was running as part of his deck. That image is out there. You can check Reddit or the main Discord. I'm not going to go over it here because the showcase is whatever. It's something that you're going to pop and see regardless. So we've already talked about the card itself. Doesn't really need to talk about that. So without any further ado, we have Daughter of Dathomir. This is a 4-cost Vigilance ground unit, 3 power, 5 health, Force and Night traits. While this unit is undamaged, it gains Restore 2. This is a common number 62 out of 257 in TWI. Daughter of Dathomir is actually a fairly decent filler card for your drafts and your sealeds. At 4 cost, 3/5, it's got some decent stats that'll be able to put in some work, but it's specifically being able to restore 2 while it's undamaged is going to be very good for limited environments so that you can restore that stuff off of your base, so long as your opponent doesn't interact with the card at all, which is actually a little bit harder. Your opponent would have to ram something into this to put some damage onto it, because there's not going to be too many things that clear. However, in Premier, constructed, again, whatever you want to call it, Daughter of Dathomir is very susceptible to basically every damage event and unit in the game. All you need to do is put 1 damage on this and it shuts off the Restore 2, and then it really isn't that viable of a unit. 4 cost 3/5 is, I think, below average stats for a 4 cost. It's that Restore 2 that puts it at that 4 cost, which makes it good. It is a Force unit, so it does mix with Force traits. It is a Night unit, so we might see more Night Sister or Night Brother units later on down the line. I honestly don't really have too much faith that the traits are going to be supported as much set to set, so we'll have to see. This might just be a fun flavor thing. Y'all complain about flavor text. Honestly, traits are flavor text at this point. And General Grievous, the unit, that's got a lot of flavor text on it. Next up, we have an upgrade that has an ability that reflects a unit we've already seen, but now can be attached to other units. We have Strategic Acumen. This is a 1-cost command upgrade. Attached unit gains action, exhaust this unit. Play a unit from your hand, it costs 1 less. This is a learn traded upgrade that gives you +2 health. It is a common, number 120 out of 257 in TWI. Strategic Acumen is Alliance Dispatcher on an upgrade, so you can actually throw that ability and the two health onto another unit. Throw it on something that's got a big body, so that way you can keep using it over and over, and you have the ability to do cool things with that. Anything that's got an extra, anything that's got a bigger body, you can actually throw something like this on Bright Hope. And since you don't really want to be attacking with Bright Hope too much, you can just exhaust it, get an 8 health body, and then just keep playing units every round for 1 less, utilizing Strategic Acumen. It's an interesting card. Limited, I think it actually will see a lot of play in terms of constructed or premier, probably only in decks that can get away with spending that 1. You could spend the 1, put it on a unit, exhaust that unit, play another unit for whatever you would have paid for just playing that unit anyway, but you get the 2 health. And that's a kind of a solid bonus, and also kind of sandbags your actions for the round, so that way you can see what your opponent wants to do before you actually do anything of import. So interesting strategy. We'll see if the Acumen proves strategic enough. Next up, we got a big old separatist tank showing off. Heavy Persuader tank, a 7-cost aggression ground unit, 6 power, 5 health, separatist droid, vehicle, and tank. Gotta love the tank trait. Exploit 2, so this can come down for a 3 if you sacrifice 2 units. When played, you may deal 2 damage to a ground unit. This is common, number 167 out of 257 in TWI. Limited All-Star. This is a bomb. You sacrifice 2 droids that'll be very easy to come by in limited and be able to pop one of your opponent's clone trooper tokens or anything with 2 health, or just deal damage to be able to start getting through that if you need to do that, like something on your opponent's leader. I like this a lot. It has a lot of really cool flavor to it. You are basically blasting a clone trooper off the board. We'll see if it has any. I don't think this is really going to see too much play in Premier, kind of like the Tri-Droid Suppressor or the MTT. I like the MTT a lot because it still deploys a droid, but I can definitely see why people wouldn't necessarily want to run this batch of units. It's not really as good as the Separatist Battle Tank, but a Heavy Persuader tank dropping a 3-cost 6/5 when you play droid deployment on round 1, and you can play this on round 2. That's really, really good. There's a lot of really decent plays that end up starting with droid deployment or battle droid escort that can get you something on the board that's very difficult to deal with otherwise. So we'll have to see how effective that is. And, you know, Persuader tank, go burr. Next up, we have another tank, but this isn't normally what this tank should probably do. We have here Patrolling AAT, a 5-cost villainy ground unit, 4 power, 5 health, separatist vehicle tank. Again, tank tribal, tank typal, whatever you want to call it. Sentinel, common, 232 out of 257 in TWI. I love the AATs. I think they're a really cool design of just a hover tank that blasts the hell out of you. Reminds me a lot of World War II tanks. Obviously, it doesn't look like it, but they function similarly, minus, you know, the rockets up front. Whatever, regardless. I like AATs. I think they did my boy dirty with this card. 5-cost 4/5 is under curve. Sentinel, cool. It's a tank that protects your front line. I would have much preferred something that did more damage, even if it didn't have as much health. Like if you wanted to drop a 5 cost, let's say 6-4 or a 7-4 or a 7-3, something like that. I think that would have been really cool because it would have been very easy to take out minus having it have Sentinel. But you can sit there's a big tank that's like, hey, deal with this or it's coming. And, you know, the Hailfire tank is actually pretty good. I wouldn't imagine that a Hailfire tank is technically better than the AAT, but, you know, it is what it is. Love the art. I think that's pretty cool. In terms of a playable card, very good and limited. You do need those Sentinels. It is a 5-cost unit. It does work for separatists. Has some cool synergy with them. Outside of limited, don't think it's going to see much play, if at all. Next up, we have an absolutely bonkers event, a recycling event, if you will. We have Reprocess, a 3-cost command villainy supply event. Why is everything good command villainy? Choose up to 4 units in your discard pile. Put them on the bottom of your deck in a random order and create that many battle droid tokens. This is an uncommon, number 88 out of 257 in TWI. If you're exploiting tokens and you don't have that big of a discard pile, this isn't going to help you a lot. But if you're exploiting other things that end up giving you units in your discard pile, this could essentially take 4 of those units from your discard pile, slot them to the bottom of your deck, and then also give you 4 battle droid tokens on the board. That's nuts. That's absolutely nuts. This actually is the cheapest way of being able to put battle droids on the board, so long as you have the units in your discard pile to be able to do so. So if you're playing Afra and you're flipping a card every turn and then repossess to be able to get those units back into your deck and then throw battle droids onto the board, that's an interesting strategy. Afra Command, or Afra Green, if you will, based on doing battle droid shenanigans, might be pretty interesting. I don't think it's better than Dooku Yellow / Cunning, but there's some interesting strategy with that regardless. Repossess, though, I imagine if you're losing units mid to late game, you could, for 3 costs, basically just put 4 battle droids onto the board, try to exploit something out later. And that might not be a bad play for a 1-2 punch of repossessing, getting those droids, exploiting those droids, and putting out something bigger to protect you or prepare to win in the next round. Next up, we have a creator preview from Bad Takes SWU. Link in the description below to their blog post about their preview. This card is nuts. Yet another nuts cunning card. Let's just get right into it. We have Shadowed Intentions. This is a 3-cost cunning upgrade. Attached unit gains. This unit cannot be captured, defeated, or returned to its owner's hand by enemy card abilities. You don't get any stat bonuses. It is an innate event. It is a rare, number 220 out of 257 in TWI. So it's 2/3 Lurking TIE Phantom. Basically can't be captured or defeated by enemy abilities, but this one says that you can't be returned to your hand, whereas Lurking TIE Phantom says you can't be damaged. So stuff like Open Fire, Overwhelming Barrage, that can still damage your unit that has been that has had this upgrade placed onto them, but it protects you from Evacuate and Waylay and any of the other things that bounce you back to your hand, which honestly is really good. You could stick this on a Boba Fett to protect your Boba Fett from not give it total damage immunity while it has Boba Fett's armor on him, but it does protect you from 2 damage and give you 2 extra health, and then make it so that you can't be defeated by anything like Rival's Fall or Takedown if your health's low enough, so on and so forth. Boba Fett and your leaders do kind of lose a little bit of value here, but let's say you throw this on your Fire Spray, and that means that it can't be captured, defeated, or bounced back to your hand by your enemy's abilities. It can still be damaged, but damaging units in space is a lot harder than it is being able to damage units on the ground. So we'll have to see how effective this is. I think this goes as like a maybe a 1 of main board in cunning decks that want to run things that give you protection and 2 in the sideboard, or maybe not any at all. A Boba Fett deck could run 2 armor and 1 of this to give yourself different types of protection to be able to protect you from whatever your opponent's plan is. Ultimately, I think this card is going to see a lot of play. It is a very good card. It is a 3-cost, and it does take an action to be able to protect yourself from something. But if you've got something that you don't want to leave the board by either capture or being defeated or being bounced back to your hand, this is a great card to utilize to protect yourself from those things on your units. Next up, we have our 3rd leader of the week and the absolute bracket buster of leaders in this set. Nobody was expecting this leader. I'm sure nobody was expecting what this leader does. This leader is nuts. It is genuinely one of the best leaders, if not the best leader in the set so far. And I haven't even seen the last leader yet. And I can tell you this is already going to be one of the best ones. Link to this preview in the description below on FFG socials. Let's just get right to it. We have Nala Se, Clone Engineer, as our Vigilance Villainy Rare Leader, Kamino in trait, Ignore the aspect penalty on clones you play. This is an epic action for 4. You can flip into a 1/7 into this, which also allows you to ignore the aspect penalty on clone units you play. However, you get the added bonus of each friendly clone unit gains when defeated heal 2 damage from your base. Nalase is the type of leader that people really wanted Hera to be. There are way more clones than Spectres. Villainy has a much better suite of removal than heroism does. Villainy is just a better control aspect, period. Nobody can argue that. What Nalase can do is take all of your clones that you would normally play in heroism and play them in villainy. Now, you're probably not going to be generating too many clone trooper tokens, but that's okay, because realistically, you're going to be wanting to use things that will allow you to just keep good clones on the board. And if you have to sacrifice them, you can you can get the extra heal when defeated to be able to heal your base. A lot of people have been using combination of the client with Bosk, or even just the client and defeating your opponent's units to be able to heal stuff off their base. This is the same thing, but it gives you a whole suite of clones to access from. Nalase has genuinely the largest card pool to build from because she's Vigilance herself. You can pick a base, whether you go double Vigilance or you go Vigilance Command, Vigilance Aggression, Vigilance Cunning, it doesn't really matter, but you have every clone in the game from last set to until this card rotates out, whenever rotation happens. Absolutely insane. I don't know whether to be super happy about how funny the fact that this just broke everybody's bracket about what leaders are going to be, or absolutely depressed that this is going to be the premier control platform, because what you can do with one clone, we're going to ignore every other clone in existence. We're not going to pay attention to Echoes. We're not going to pay attention to Omega. We're not going to pay attention to Wrecker. We're not going to pay attention to Captain Rex, which can drop 2 clone troopers, not Batch Brothers, none of that. The one clone that is going to break this deck in half and make it so that it is going to be one of the most oppressive representations of control in the game is Tech. Tech originally needed to play out of aspect in any villainy deck to get that smuggle thing. Nalase says, nah fam, clones like me, I create clones. I don't pay for aspect penalties. And Tech comes in for 3, and because you're not paying any aspect penalties on any of their clones, those come out for whatever they would normally come out, +2 for Tech's ability for smuggle. But the big thing is you get all your control pieces out of your resource row. You have 2 hands with Tech on the board. All you have to do is protect Tech. And you know how you protect Tech? You just destroy every other unit your opponent has. Nalase is absolutely nuts, and I genuinely think is going to be the top level of competition coming in set 3, and I don't think that's a good thing. I like the design of her. I think it's fun and thematic. Nobody's using this for the thematic aspect. They're going to throw Tech onto the board and just go all kill, no skill, all day, every day, and it's going to be the Iden Aggression deck from set 1 all over again. And people are tired of Boba now. It's just going to be Boba and Nalase from here on out. Next up, we have a very unique design for a leader. We could talk about it, or we can just show you. We have here Chancellor Palpatine playing both sides. This leader starts the game with this side face up. Republic official traits. Action, exhaust this leader. If a friendly heroism unit was defeated this phase, draw a card, heal 2 damage from your base, then flip this leader. What does that mean? Well, first off, this is number 17 out of 257, a rare in TWI, starts with Cunning Heroism, but flips into Darth Sidious playing both sides. Cunning Villainy. Action, Force Separatist Sith traits. Action, exhaust the leader. If you have played a villainy card this phase, create a clone trooper token, deal 2 damage to an enemy base, then flip this leader. It remains number 17 out of 257, a rare in TWI. This is an insane design. Having no epic action to deploy it means that you're losing a powerful tool in your toolkit. However, Chancellor Palpatine actually, with the exception of the first round, unless you have some crazy shenanigans, can flip every single round into its different forms. So Sidious, Palpatine, yada, yada, blah, 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 and allow you to do some really cool things that other leaders wouldn't be able to do, sacrificing that epic action to deploy a leader that has a big body that can do some extra damage. The way that I see this deck being built, not specific to any of the style aspects, but quote morality style, because remember, when you have the aspects on the board, that means you're paying based upon the aspects that you see, not the aspects that the character has. So you see cunning heroism, which means you're paying your heroism cards normally, but your villainy cards are out of aspect. When you flip over to Sidious, your villainy cards are correct, but your heroism cards are out of aspect. So ideally, you want to play a bunch of heroism units that potentially have ambush or ways to get themselves off the board, or combo with other things to get them off the board. So you can flip into Palpatine, and Palpatine's villainy cards mainly want to be your events, and maybe a big bomb or whatnot that might necessarily need. You could also go with a low amount of heroism units and maybe things that create the clone trooper tokens that are not necessarily heroism, or just exist within the space as just a style aspect. So that way you can get your clone trooper token on the other side when you play your villainy card, ram that into something else to be able to flip from Palpatine to Sidious, play a villainy card, flip from Sidious to Palpatine, so on and so forth. Two important aspects. When this exhausts itself to be able to use its ability, it goes to the other side already exhausted. The reason why the leader unit doesn't do that is because the epic action rule specifically states you ready the leader unit as it enters play. So there, as it's deployed. So there you go. That means that when you flip Chancellor Palpatine into Darth Sidious, he's exhausted. When you flip Darth Sidious into Chancellor Palpatine, he's exhausted. The other thing is if a friendly unit was defeated this phase, and if you've played a villainy card this phase, they are required in order to be able to flip the leader. You can't just action and then do what you can. If a friendly heroism unit was defeated this phase, and if you played a villainy card this phase, are conditional effects, conditional costs, we'll say, in order to be able to do the other stuff. So keep that in mind when you're building your deck. I think right off the bat, I'm looking at potentially doing double cunning, running that Chancellor Palpatine unit that we saw, the legendary, that does some cool stuff with units coming into to play ready. Not as many as the token creators as possible, but there's a lot of really good battle droid and one good clone trooper creator token that should be interesting to see play in these decks. I think a lot of people are going to find this interesting. I think a lot of people are going to bounce off this design because it's going to require a lot of actually good play in order to be able to make this successful. So we'll see who makes this successful. And even if it's not competitive, it's a really cool design and it's really fun. Next up, we have two previews by way of Hunter and Friends over on YouTube. Link in the description below to their video. We've got an event. We've got a big unit. Let's start with this event. We have Death by Droids. This is a 5-cost vigilance tactic event. Defeat a unit that costs 3 or less. Create 2 battle droid tokens. This is an uncommon, number 76 out of 257 in TWI. This is very expensive for what it does. 3-cost unit or less for 5 is pretty hefty cost, but it does generate 2 battle droid tokens for you. So Death by Droids will kill Grievous, the unit. It'll kill anything that Traitorous can take, essentially. And it costs the same too, but you get a better effect out of it because it's not something that's a temporary takeover until your opponent defeats the upgrade. You just kill that unit, and then you get 2 battle droid tokens for it. So being able to defeat a unit that costs 3 or less should cost about 3. Getting each battle droid 1 each adds up to 5. It's a pretty good event. I don't know that this is going to see a ton of play. It's a good limited card. Draft and Sealed are going to use this a lot. But if you're in Vigilance and you need those battle droid tokens and you know you're going up against a big low to the ground strategy, Death by Droids will help get you some droids on the board and knock out that troublesome unit as well. You thought the Crate Dragon was a chungus. The second preview from Hunter and Friends is the Zillo Beast, Awakened from the Depths. This is a 9-cost Vigilance ground unit, 10 power, 10 health creature. When played, give each enemy ground unit -5, -0 for this phase. When the regroup phase starts, heal 5 damage from this unit. This is a rare, number 67 out of 257 in TWI. Zillo Beast is basically a control piece. It's something that's designed that you can reduce your opponent's attack power to 0 effectively, because there's going to be a lot of things that are 5 or less. Anything that's above that's going to be hitting for, peanuts and nickels. But the Zillo Beast being able to heal damage from itself means that on the next turns when your opponent's units get their power back, you can still attack into something to clear it off the board, hopefully freeze the other stuff in place or deal with it in another way, and then your Zillo Beast just heals 5 damage from it every round. So your opponent has to try to 100 to 0 this in one round, otherwise it's just going to stick around and cause a lot more havoc and damage in the long run. A Zillo Beast and a Crate Dragon on the field is not something I think anybody wants to see. I'll be interested to see if they continue this by giving us a command and a cunning creature that's a 10/10/9 cost that has a bonkers effect. So the Crate Dragon's definitely better, but the Zillo Beast does something fun for Vigilance. And if we're not having fun with the game, what are we really doing? Next up, we have another double single aspect card from FFG Socials. Link in the description below. We have Finn on the Run. This is a 3-cost double vigilance ground unit, 3 power, 4 health, fringe trooper. When this unit completes an attack, choose a unique unit. For this phase, if damage would be dealt to that unit, prevent 1 of that damage. This is a rare number 53 out of 257 in TWI. Finn gets his own unit. It's not resistance flavored. It has nothing to do with his actual leader. He provides 0 support to that deck. 3-cost double vigilance, 3/4. It's okay. I think Embo has the same stats, but he's only a single vigilance. Ezra has this, but he's cunning, heroism. I think the biggest problem with Finn is when this unit completes an attack. If it's on attack and you get to do it, he can protect himself. Or at least protect something else before he dies if you're sacrificing him to something else. The fact that he has to survive the attack in order to be able to apply this effect, and it's just 1 damage, it really isn't a worthwhile effect. They kind of did Finn dirty with this card, and I think that he deserves a lot better. Hopefully we'll have a resistance Finn later on that really represents the character as most people preferred him to be, but we'll have to see in the next couple of sets what ends up happening with Finn. We have some elusive weekend previews. 2 different sets of previews coming by 2 different content creators. So let's start with, and I'm going to butcher this and I apologize, 2 previews from Les Cartes Surtable. Link in the description below for their previews. We've got a unit and an event. We're going to start with this event, and it is Unmasking the Conspiracy. This is a 1-cost Cunning Gambit event. Discard a card from your hand. If you do, look at an opponent's hand and discard a card from it. This is a rare number 223 out of 257 in TWI. This is effectively more hand control for cunning. Cunning and aggression kind of go together in that hand disruption thing where sometimes it's you're making your opponent choose to discard cards. Sometimes it's making your opponent discard the card randomly. And then in the case of Unmasking the Conspiracy, if you pitch a card, you can force your opponent to pitch a card from their hand and you get to choose it. So you get that knowledge of cards in their hand, much like Spark of the Rebellion, and then you get to be able to choose the spiciest card to be able to discard from them. You do have to have a card in hand to discard in order to be able to discard a card from your opponent's hand. So this is a 2-card cost in addition to the 1 resource spent to do Unmasking the Conspiracy. But if you're looking to discard cards with something like, say, Kylo, you're throwing those TIE silencers out, or any of the other things that you can potentially dig back from your discard pile, that might help you in Unmasking the Conspiracy, being able to do some cool things with that. It's kind of an after card because it's more cards that can go into your discard pile early on, so you can get those different costs and pull something back to your hand without suffering too much. And then you can pick up one of your Force units back with Palpatine's Return if you're running the Afra command deck that some people are looking at trying to run. This is an interesting card. I don't know how I feel about it. I think it's simply a sideboard card. I think cards like Political Pressure and Spark of the Rebellion are probably better than Unmasking the Conspiracy. But if you've got extra cards and you're just drawing cards all day, Unmasking the Conspiracy could give you some advantage against aggro and control decks who need all the tools they can possibly get in their hands at all times, and you can stop them that way. Next up, we have the unit from this preview, who is Fly More, Secretive Advisor. This is a 3-cost Cunning ground unit, 3 power, 3 health, Republic official traits, so those are good. When played, take control of an enemy token unit and ready it. At the start of the regroup phase, that token unit's owner takes control of it. This is a rare number 211 out of 257 in TWI. Obviously, it's supposed to be take control of an enemy unit. Don't be a douchebag. Make fun of the misprint on the card, but it is take control of an enemy token unit. This is actually a fairly interesting card if you're going up against Clone Trooper tokens as Palpatine. If you want to flip into Sidious, you can use Sly More to take control of one of your opponent's token units and then slam it into one of your opponent's units and be able to flip into Sidious after that because a heroism unit has been defeated. Sly More herself is not a heroism unit, but she does give you a 3/3 stat line for 3 with the ability to take something from your opponent as long as it's a token unit and be able to do that. Fun fact, it doesn't say Clone Trooper and it doesn't say Battle Droid. It says token unit. So right now we only have 2 types of token units, but who knows what the future holds for Star Wars Unlimited. This is going to be an interesting card. I think it's actually going to see some play in Palpatine, the cunning Chancellor Palpatine, but who knows exactly where this ends up playing. This could just be a sideboard. If my opponent's running a bunch of tokens, I can play Sly More to take control and do something with it, or any combination thereof. You can throw this in your separatist decks that are running Cunning to be able to steal your opponent's units and exploit them off the board. You just want to make sure you get rid of that token unit before the regroup phase comes, so that way it doesn't go back to your opponent. And then you use your 3/3 to do other things like empower an Emperor's Royal Guard. And lastly, we have 2 previews coming by way of Quest for the Janklord. Link in the description below to this preview, an upgrade and a unit. Let's take a look at this upgrade. We have Foresight, a 1-cost vigilance upgrade. When an attached unit gains when the regroup phase starts, before drawing cards, name a card and then look at the top card of the deck. If it's the named card, you may reveal it and draw it. This gives you 2 health. It is a learned traded upgrade. This is a rare, number 68 out of 257 in TWI. Foresight is designed to allow Yoda to be able to draw cards. You can set things up to put them on top of your deck and then draw them later with Foresight, or allow your Thrawn to be able to pull cards back to your hand from the top of your deck that you already know exist if they haven't been discarded or drawn in any other manner, utilizing this upgrade in a Cunning Vigilance blue-yellow deck. So it is interesting. It does give 2 health for 1 cost. That's not terrible. I think it's pretty cool. There's a lot of different things you can work with this. You can work with R2, you can work with 3PO, you can work with Thrawn, you can work with Yoda. It'll be interesting to see how this ends up getting used. A lot of that top deck manipulation of being able to see what's there and call the name out to be able to draw the card, or name it, look, you're going to get the card regardless, but you might be able to draw 3 cards instead of 2 cards during the regroup phase. And drawing more cards is a good thing. And this is only a single cost. The condition of drawing the card is just knowing what's on top of your deck. So use the different things that allow you to look at the top of your deck to be able to get that card to hand for cheap. And our unit is Jyn Erso Stardust, a 2-cost aggression heroism ground unit, 3 power, 2 health, rebel trait. While an enemy unit has been defeated this phase, this unit gets +1/+0 and gains Saboteur. This is a rare, number 143 out of 257 in TWI. This is an automatic inclusion into all the Sabine decks because Sabine has a bunch of really easy ways of being able to defeat the opponent's units through incidentary damage. You can do it with Poe, dealing 2 damage to kill a unit off the board, or when you're trying to eliminate that Boba Fett, slam into him, be able to deal the extra damage, and then do so. Wrecker comes out, does 5 damage to your unit, that can defeat it. You could always slam a unit into it. If you're going up against Sentinels, the Saboteur is not going to be as useful until you've killed the Sentinel, which means if there's no other Sentinels on the board, Saboteur is not useful. But getting that +1/+0 going to a 4/2 just for defeating a unit off your opponent's side of the board based upon doing anything is actually quite good, especially if your opponent has a tendency to slam their units into you. That could mean that Jyn Erso ends up with that 4 power for 2 very easily. This is a card I'm actually thinking of slotting into Hera because it's a 2-cost good unit, 3/2. It runs along the same lines as Lothal Rebel, Lothal Insurgent, but instead of doing extra things with discarding cards, you get to be able to get some extra damage and Saboteur to bypass a shield or bypass your opponent's Sentinels. It's pretty cool. I like this card a lot. It'll be fun. It's rare, easy to get. Cassian was a super easy card to get. All of those characters now have their units except for Chirrut, which I wonder if we'll see that in set 4 or potentially in the not too distant future of Star Wars Unlimited. There you have it, an absolute monster amount of previews to cover. The next thing that should be coming out that we'll be covering will be the press kit coverage, the cards that are open from that. FFG specifically left some cards for creators who got the press kits in order to be able to open them up and showcase them to the audience. So that'll be something that happens. Probably next week it'll be the coverage for that. And then we have pre-release. Oh my gosh, we're so close. We're basically right there. Lots of cool leader designs. I will have a video going out later this week covering my top 3 leaders and some honorable mentions. So be sure to check that out. We're going to probably plot that for Thursday or Friday, depending on some specific stuff. So be on the lookout. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at RybackStun. Wherever you can find me, it's all at RybackStun. But that's it. That's all we got. Thank you very much for joining me. Everybody, I appreciate each and every one of you. Like and comment on this video. Let me know what your favorite leader design is so far, what your favorite preview from this batch was. Subscribe to this Star Wars Unlimited YouTube channel for all of your Star Wars Unlimited needs. Twilight Republic is almost here. And once we get in there, build those decks, play those games, have some fun, and then it's on to jump to light speed. So with that, I will see you in the stars.